Now, Macron is hoping for a re-election. Experts say that his campaign this year had several problems, the biggest of them all being that Emmanuel Macron came across as too presidential. So what does that mean exactly? During his election campaign, Macron adopted a strategy that has made him a preeminent father of the nation and a global crisis manager instead of focusing on domestic issues. Now, Macron largely concentrated on global issues. To name some, his attempt to mediate the war in Ukraine. Not only this, Macron also refused to participate in the live television debates, along with his 11 other presidential candidates, which was seen as cynical and aloof, especially at a time when French voters wanted to directly hear from the candidates. However, Macron did not hesitate in participating in some shows on France's main television channels, which focused on the Ukraine war. Now, he has further been accused of dodging the democratic competition by his opponents, meanwhile shunning all of the allegations. The French president, in a televised address, asserted on how there was no hard and fast rule of debating ahead of the presidential elections. Experts say this has been one of the major backdrops for Macron during his election campaign, which has given Le Pen an upper hand. Now, the far-right candidate has come across as a skilled communicator who has campaigned relentlessly in France's heartlands and focused on everyday issues, further emphasizing on the rising cost of living. Le Pen launched a proximity campaign where she visited a lot of small towns and villages, another aspect which gave Le Pen an edge over Macron. Now, is the duration of her campaign? She started campaigning 7 months ago, while Macron only announced his candidacy in March, hoping to create a maximum impact. However, his tactics clearly lacked the personal connection, which has turned out to be a major drawback for Macron and a boon for far-right candidate Marine Le Pen. And now let's continue to speak on this issue with Laura Cometti, who continues to be with us. Now, take us through the situation on the ground, the voter apathy and the low voter turnout that we've seen in these elections.
Well, it's true that there's a tendency in France and in other democracies for now a few years, with a lot of an important abstention among a disillusioned French electorate, and the turnout will be absolutely critical because Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen can both be damaged if their voters do not show up. As you said earlier, the voter turnout is 65% at 5 p.m. Paris time, which is 5 points lower than in 2012 and 2017. But it is a bit higher than in 2002, which was the year that Marine Le Pen's father, Jean-Marie, made it into the second round. So that's interesting to note. And 2 polls published today estimate that the abstention at the end of the day should be between 24 and 26%. So we'll see what happens at the end of the day when the polling stations are closed. In 2017, the abstention rate was 22%. So we have to wait and see what happens. But it is true that there is a crisis of confidence in France between French voters and their political representatives. It has been going on for years now.
And Laura, finally, what lies ahead for France? Who do you think will lead the second biggest economy in Europe?
Well, actually, as you said also, the polls regarding the second round, which will happen in 2 weeks, in these polls, the polling gap between Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen has narrowed a lot. It has narrowed considerably. They are neck and neck, and moreover, the margin of error of the polling institutes is almost 2, 3, 4 points. So we could have a surprise, but in France, in the past elections, there has been a tradition of what we call the Republican Front, meaning all parties and all the political spectrum will ally against the far-right candidate Marine Le Pen. It happened before against her father, Jean-Marie. So it is a political tradition in France, but as I said, with the question of the turnout and also this crisis of confidence between citizens and their political representatives, we have to see if this Republican front is still strong and still exists in France. And since the two traditional parties in France, the left-wing Les Républicains, the right-wing traditional party Les Républicains and the left-wing traditional party, which is the Socialist Party, they used to be both the strong political forces in France, but now with Emmanuel Macron appearing 5 years ago, creating his party and really damaging these two historical parties, now the political spectrum in France is much more surprising, and there are a lot of doubts about this possible Republican front against Marine Le Pen, and especially will voters listen to the parties if the parties make a big call and all against Le Pen, go vote against Le Pen, even though you don't support Emmanuel Macron, go vote for him.
Right.
That's a big question right now.
Absolutely. Laura, thank you very much for being with us on this broadcast and for your valuable insights and analysis there.
Thank you, Alison. Have a nice day. Bye.
You too.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.